Hi, I'm Kate. I'm here in Bristol and I'm going to show you today how to really maximise the value of your clothing when you're selling it online. So there's all sorts of different platforms. Some of them are eBay or preloved, Depop, or even Gumtree is actually really good for selling clothing, but there'll be all sorts of other ones in your area as well. So the first thing I think to mention is just that you want to make your clothing look their best. So this shirt is really creased at the moment, and if I want to sell it, I want to make sure it's looking tip-top. So what I'm going to do is make sure that my iron is on the right heat setting. I don't want to scorch my clothes, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not going over the max level on the water, because I don't want to end up with watermarks all over everything. I'm going to flatten it out really well so I'm not creating extra creases, and I'm going to give it some steam. And that hopefully, if I get into all the corners, will give me a really nice crisp finish on this garment. While I'm pressing as well and ironing, what I can look for is whether there's anything like a missing button or a fallen hem, which actually would take me 2 minutes just to sort out, but it could really increase the value of my item. So our garment's now pressed, it's ready for its close-up. So now we're going to look at photographing it. So here we've got our garment on the hanger. You're going to want to make sure that you're using daylight. That's the best way to photograph it. So rather than evening mood lighting doesn't really help, you want to be able to really clearly see what's on offer. I would also recommend doing kind of close-ups of any print or embellishment that it has on it, so people can see, as well as photographing any brand name or label. So that's really useful to have. I would also say, in terms of photographing, I wouldn't lie it on the floor. I would always kind of hang it maybe on the back of a door or anywhere that you have a nice blank background behind it. Also, when you're photographing, if you've mentioned any damage in the description of the item, make sure that you photograph that, because actually 9 times out of 10 it's not as bad as people might imagine if they can't see it. So I think just show them actually what any damage looks like and they can make an educated decision then. So we've got some great pictures of our clothing now, that's fantastic. Our garment is all ready to go. What we're going to need is a really strong description. And what I mean by that is, what are people going to search for? What are the key terms? So what I would want to know is what size it is, that's really important. And also whether it has a particular brand name. Is it a designer label? Is it if it's vintage, is it from a particular era, for example? They're the kind of things people might search. So I think thinking about that is really important. And also underneath that, within your description of the garment, what you're going to want is dimensions, because people don't necessarily trust standard sizing, and it's been worn, you know, it might be a slightly different size now. So especially with vintage things, I think vintage, a 10 could mean something entirely different. Also it might be an American size. So let's think about actually how do we give people accurate dimensions. Well, what would you want to know? Do you want to know the length of the sleeve? Think about if you were buying it, that might be a useful thing to know, where it's going to come to. And also I would want to know whether I can tuck it in my jeans, for example. So I want to know the centre front all the way down the button stand, all the way to the hem. I think that's a really useful measurement there. So now we've got great pictures, we've got a really strong description, and you're really going to maximise the value of your garment.